Welcome ladies and gentlemen, I am SocioPsycho and today we take a look at DreadOut. This was created by Digital Happiness, coming soon for Mac and Linux. Right now it's just for Windows, but they're working on those. Now for those interested, it does have 25 Steam achievements, and this game is a adventure horror, not to be confused with a survival horror such as Outlast. This is a adventure horror, so you have puzzles to solve, problems to overcome, and exploration as the main feat, with some horror element aspects. Now we will go into whether or not it pans out, whether it works together, whether it flows, how the atmosphere mixes with the story, is there a story, and these questions will be answered. But first, let's look at the main here. How to play is basically just a tutorial. It goes over some very basic screens of controls about what happens, as you can see. When we go into settings, you have a wide berth for screen resolutions, which is always nice. Your vertical sync, particles, terrain detail, anti-alias is not anything really all that impressive. The graphics in this game are not that impressive at all. They are okay, but that's about it. Now I have not experienced frame drops while playing the game. It stayed at a steady 60 frames per second for me and above. But there has been tearing and there has been clipping in the game. Objects will clip through each other, you can see through some things, textures are missing. It's not visually a very impressive game, but it can sort of overcome that if graphics aren't a huge deal for you, because it has a lot of atmosphere. When we go into audio, now this is something that's just, it's disappointing to say the least, because having voice, sound effects, and music all into a master slider instead of having 3 different sliders is just, I think, unacceptable, and it's stupid, especially when you have different qualities of atmosphere to your game. For some people, the voicing might be too low, and they need that louder, and the ambient sound can be higher. Different people, different pitches. Not having a correct volume slider, you're basically sabotaging yourself. Gameplay, it has different languages, and subtitles mouse sensitivity will keep on. I haven't had any issues with mouse sensitivity. I haven't felt like they've been having any mouse acceleration or anything. It's worked out just fine. As the game itself is not overly that large, and it does have 2 parts to it. The game has, right now, Chapter 1 that's been released, and they're going to, when Chapter 2 is complete, give it to everybody who's already bought Chapter 1. No issue, no payment, nothing else. Now another drawback that may happen for you is the fact that the game has really long loading screens. Now there's not overly too many once you get into a school, but the few loading screens you do happen upon take a fair amount of time, and I'm running on a very good system, so it might be even longer for you. So what exactly is this game? And it starts out where you're in this van and you're driving up the coast with your teacher and some other school children, because this is themed in an Indonesian/Asian world, and it captures ideas and maybe a feeling of Silent Hill as you come across this town which is completely abandoned. And so you come up to this bridge, the bridge is collapsed, everyone in the vehicle has to get out, and then you walk up into the town, you see it's deserted, you can walk around a bit, there's not too much that's impressive, and eventually you come to the school where you get trapped in it by a poltergeist, some sort of demon or spirits or ghosts or whatever you want to call them. They live in this place. So before we get into what exactly the atmosphere sounds like, how the music is, and everything else, let us look at the basic equipment and functionality of the game interface. Now you have items you can pick up. Don't really give too much of a description upon what they do and how to use them or where to use them just yet. Now when we look into the files, you have basically your objective logs here, which keep a track of everything that you've come across as of importance or your mission objectives. Your documents are aspects of story. Now this is how the story is progressed past some cutscenes and talking points. You pick up and you go through and you find different flyers and papers, and they propel this sort of story to the world. School struck by mass possession. So it goes through as events happened, and it gives you this sort of feel like something happened here and it wasn't good. And when you take a picture of a ghost that's in here, which there are different types, you can get info on this ghost. So a dark being who roams the world bearing the promise of immortality. He manifests with the faces of those who are willing to sacrifice themselves. There are different types of spirits, and some are not that dangerous that you can easily dismiss, and some are just plain out annoying. In your camera, you can take photos, and we'll go over how that mechanic interlays with the game in a moment here. But as you can see, I took photos of different ghosts and whatnot, and you can get a feel, and then your system is basically attached. So when you take a picture with your camera, you can then choose to save it, which will go into a gallery, which you saw on the first main page. If you don't save the photos you want, it won't automatically go to the gallery and it'll get overwritten. So it's a way to kind of save memories that you want or to relook at different pictures. So it's not really a complex game. It's very simplistic in its movement and its atmosphere of control. WASD for movement, and then just escape for inventory, and your mouse left and right to operate your phone. This game holds, it says like a first person, and this is what it means by first person view, by just bringing up your phone. Otherwise, you're completely in third person, and you're scoping around to look. Now, what's spooky about it is at times that you'll hear the atmosphere, but you won't be able to see unless you look through your camera of a ghost. So at times, this is going to add a sort of level of spook to the environment. Before we jump into certain aspects of the adventure in the school, I want to point out the story characteristics of the game, because the story is actually quite well done and it captivates you. Now, earlier I said it's like Silent Hill. When your vehicle is stopped and everybody gets out, you have a choice to turn around and run. And as you see here, this road, it goes downwards into a ramp. I spent a good 10 minutes on the bottom of a ramp just running and running and running, and I kept getting into a loop. I never got anywhere further, and it was like Silent Hill where the mist prevented you from escaping type situation. And what's nice about the running, and something I wanted to show you outside because it's more visually easy to see because it's brighter, is that when they run, you have this breath. It is an audio signal that I'm getting tired, I'm running out of air, I better stop soon, I better hide soon. And this is nice. This adds a level of intensity into the game. Instead of just being like, oh, you have a stamina bar that's slowly shrinking. It adds much more personalization. Now, the voice acting in the game and how the story has progressed is done actually quite well. You get a good sense and feel of how the characters that you're with, their personality types by how they speak, and what you can expect from the atmosphere of your companions. Even though they don't really accompany you along the journey because you get separated once you're in the school, you have a sense of who is my friend, who do I need to look out for, and you understand what's going on. It gives you this sense of purpose, and it fits very well together, and the voice acting is done to a T in that discretion.
Ow.
Actually, Miss Siska, what we should have done was taken a left turn initially, turned right at the intersection, and then went straight before turning around and making a left instead of a right.
Know-it-all?
Blabbermouth.
Excuse me?
Guys, hey. Please, just calm down, okay?
Whoa!
Jeez.
This place is so awesome! Oh man, cool! So, how do we get over there?
So as you can see, the story progresses in certain ways, and it continues to progress in the items that you find once you're actually in the school, always propelling this sense of dread or hope at the same time, because you want to find your companions and you want to get out of there, as well as solve the mystery of what's going on. So the story does it right in a concept of suspense. Now, it's an adventure horror, so you need to roam around. You're not trying to fight anything. You're not trying to subdue anything or destroy anything. You are trying to figure out what has happened to you, getting through this school. There's no sneaking about. You're very heavy-footed, and it gives this atmosphere. And sometimes the music just changes, where you're like, oh no, what's going on? Where's the ghost? Where's the monster? But it doesn't just throw these things at you. It's not like, okay, here's a ghost, here's a ghost, here's a ghost. It separates it enough to the point where when you do come across a ghost, you're like, okay, I need to be very careful in how I manage to get by this. because it's, like I said, it's not a combat. So you are taking your time slowly. The atmosphere is building, the suspense is climbing and climbing and climbing, and you're just waiting. You're like, okay, what is gonna happen? What is this? And if you're smart, you can avoid any jump scares because how the music kind of tips you off to the closer you get to a ghost. So it's not trying to scare you unjustly. If you get spooked, it's simply because something like the darn black cat that's running around happens to jump out at you. Or you walk in the hallway like, oh, it's a cat. Now, one thing that is slightly annoying is the fact that you can't jump or fall off ledges. Now, this leads into a manner of linearness in the level design because it demands that you only go and only find one solution and one path to get to the next area instead of being creative or trying to find a new way around or something of that nature. It very limits you in the direction that you're able to go, which doesn't necessarily break the game, but it is something that's a bit unfortunate because you can't find creative solutions. So atmosphere. Atmosphere is what this game is really heavy on, and you can feel the ghosts coming. And when you can't see anything, but if we bring our camera up, we can. So all of a sudden now there's a ghost there. We have no clue upon how it's going to react to us, what the situation is. Now the ghosts are not overly violent and they give you plenty of chances to escape and you can briefly stun them. But it's the suspense and the build-up. How close before it attacks? What will happen? And how far will it chase us? What are we able to do? Can we get away? Can we kill it? Can we stop it? And this adds to the suspense of the game, even if the AI of the ghost itself is not all that intelligent or that big. It adds a level of spook and fright, being chased by one of these creatures, knowing that you cannot destroy it and you cannot kill it, and you basically have to hide. And you turn around and boom, there it is, but you can only see it through your camera. The fact that it also runs through walls and doors makes it so you can't just hide in a room and wait out. Unfortunately, that means that the only safe place for you to go is in a completely different section of a map, where a friendly ghost, a helper, is more of a kind soul, like this guy here, and he will scare away the big bads and give you sort of a safe zone. This is good and bad because the AI in the game isn't all that intelligent, and it kind of limits your capability to be able to sneak properly upstairs to get into rooms that now a ghost is just dwelling all over. So, like I said, this game is pretty big on atmosphere, and you sneak around and you come to a certain area and you're like, okay, well, what exactly is going on here? What is this? And as you get closer, sometimes you'll find out that the ghost isn't all that imposing, or you may find out that it is. You know, when we look at this, it seems pretty harmless right now, even though the atmosphere is a bit tension-writing, and we can tell he's going to do something, and he's just doing something as silly as eating food that's falling right through him. This adds a depth of the story. Something happened here that the ghosts don't even realize that they're suffering or they're dead because they're craving basic things like that. It tells a character and draws you in story-wise more. But at the end of the day, the AI of the ghosts are just plain out dumb. It's very easy to trick them or get them stuck in a position, outrun them, or trap them. As you see here, this pig is having some serious clipping issues. And while he may be the more easier one to just confuse or even get stuck, it is a issue that I've been able to implement upon all of the ghosts. Now, this does kind of break the immersion of the gameplay a little bit, but think of it also as a way of escape. Now, should you die, which does take multiple times of a ghost hitting you, you won't actually die. You'll go to a limbo area of white light, sort of like a flowing river, and once you walk back into it, you'll respawn exactly where you were. This game is not meant to be, like I said at the very beginning, a survival horror, which is perfectly fine. It is a adventure horror. And it doesn't punish you for dying or not being as stealthy or whatnot. It wants you to be afraid. It wants you to have a little bit of a scare now and again. But its real strength is the story. There are certain aspects in this game which definitely linger to, well, should I even bother getting this? And you have to look at it more as like, do you enjoy adventure style games and a good story? Really, when it comes down to it, my biggest gripe about the game is the fact that in the music they have this continuous screech that no doubt you have heard during this entire video from periodically. This screech, as I'm showing it to you right now, is very high pitched, almost a mixture of somebody's nails on a chalkboard with a rusty wheel just being continually turned. It's really annoying and breaks the immersion as well as hurts your ears. Now maybe I'm just more sensitive to that or not. But in the end of the day, this game is not all bad. The graphic style is not intrusive in a naughty, perverted, schoolgirl type way. Yes, you are an Asian female character and you are a schoolgirl. Yes, you are trapped in a school. But we know why. We know our purpose. We know we have friends. We know we have to seek them. We know something bad is really going on here. And it's not so much of a question of, oh, we need to fix this, but more of a question of, we need to get out of here. We need to escape this. And it adds this level of suspense that propels you as to, okay, yes, I know the ghosts aren't all that interesting and they're not the strong point of the game. But when we look at this from an adventure standpoint, the puzzles, the atmosphere, the story, and how it works together, it can get by. It's not the best, and certainly not the most amazing game on the market, but if this style of gameplay is of interest, then yeah, I could recommend it to people, no problem. So thank you everybody for listening and watching. I have been SocioPsycho, and I really hope this review has helped you make a decision one way or the other. And I hope to see you around more. Feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.